not. Brad Boozer, Westwood Holdings Group, Vice President, IT Infrastructure. Brad? All right, Brad, come on up. Aubrey Bradley, Twin Health, the Director of IT and Security. Aubrey? John Butler, Propelled Brands, Director of IT. All right, here in spirit once again. I know. Excuse me. I know everyone is so busy that not everyone can stay till through the end of the day. So, with us in spirit. All right. Next up, we have Cisco Carpenter, Scottish Rite for Children, CISO. Fantastic. Thank you. First panelist. David Ewers, Heart to Heart Hospice, Senior Director of Information Technology. David? All right. Steve Fossmeyer, Trust Management Network, Director of IT. Very good. Cheers. Fernando Guardado, Goosehead Insurance Internal Audit Team Lead. Right behind you, Charlene. Cheers, Fernando. Scott Langham, Parkland Health and Hospital System, IT Cybersecurity Architect, Senior IT Cybersecurity Architect. Vaughn Manning from Transwestern, Senior IT Security Engineer. Vaughn? No. Oh.
Thank you so much.
All right. Justin Matthews, Maxer National Pharmacy Services, CISO. Paul Mokarski, Salmons Financial, Chief Information Security Officer. Here in spirit. Greg Smolens, Doman Lumber, Director of IT.
Thank you.
Jeremy Livingston, CISO, Stevens Institute of Technology. Actually, I think Jeremy left earlier and we had a duplicate for him, so he still did get this, so cheers, Jeremy. But he was here earlier. Cheryl Stewart, Healthcare Service Corporation, IT and ISGRC consultant. Cheryl? No, I think she won Spin Wheel earlier. Christian Uwamana, JP Morgan Chase, Cyber Operations Analyst. Kishore Venkat, Stitch Fix, Senior IT Manager, Cloud and Network Infrastructure. Pratik Wahi, JP Morgan Chase, Cybersecurity Analyst. No, I saw you earlier, Pratik. Oh, right there. Cheers. Congratulations. John Thompson with Comstock Resources, IT Infrastructure Manager. Right up front. Our fabulous keynote speaker from earlier today, Brendan McCauley from ConexPay, Chief Information Security Officer. I think I saw Brendan in the back. We'll make sure this gets to Brendan. Cheers on a great keynote session, Brendan. Thank you very kindly. Ogechi Ugwulebo, CISO and founder, Women in STEM Leadership, and one of our panelists. Mr. Carpenter, we had you in here twice. Phillip Wylie, another one of our panelists, penetration tester, instructor, a best-selling author, podcast host from Horizon 3 AI. Cheers, Phillip. And last but certainly not least, Joe Paul from Choreograph, cybersecurity compliance leader and deputy CISO, who will be moderating today's panel. without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and turn this over to Joe, who will be moderating our panel. I know we did have one additional panelist, Catherine Wiles. She was unable to join today. I mean, we know things are happening in cybersecurity all the time. It never stops. So she was unfortunately not able to join us. But Joe and the rest of our panel are going to take us through securing the future. We'll have CISO insights and industry leaders discussing current cyber threats and strategic defense practices with a little Dallas localized flair. So, Joe, it's all you.
Thank you, Andrew. Now, normally I would say this panel is between you and the happy hour, but that's already happened, so we don't have to say that. For our esteemed panel, I'll let them introduce themselves, but we have, and I apologize, I'll probably butcher her name, but it's Ogechi Ugwulebo, Phillip, Wylie, and James Carpenter. As Andrew said, I'm Joe Paul. I'm the Director of Cybersecurity Compliance at Choreograph, a big data company in the advertising and marketing space. Let me just turn it over to our panel so they can give whatever introduction for themselves that they'd like.
Hi, everyone. First, I want to thank FutureCon for the opportunity to serve on the panel. I am nervous, I'm terrified, but I'm here. My name is Ogechi Ugwulebo, and I am a cybersecurity professional. My background is in healthcare, and where I focus primarily on information security governance, risk, and compliance. I also would like to see myself, I think I've chosen to be an AI strategist, meaning that I have chosen to take a deeper dive into AI to understand how we're using it in our organization. I started out as a software engineer. I have about over 15 years in IT, healthcare IT. And then I transitioned into the cybersecurity role 6 years ago. So I've been in my role at the organization that I work for in healthcare for 6 years. I also am the founder of Women in STEM Leadership, which is an organization that is focused on empowering women and girls with the resources that they need to elevate their careers in STEM. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Phillip, Wylie. My background is in offensive security, which I've been in for over 12. This month made 21 years in cybersecurity. Prior to that, I was a system administrator for over 6 years. I used to teach at Dallas College. I taught pen testing and web app pen testing there. And based on the lecture I gave at the college, it was the inspiration for my book, The Pen Tester Blueprint, on starting careers in pen testing. Along with the education, I still teach workshops at conferences, do quite a bit of public speaking, and my role at Horizon 3 is Global Field Hacking Officer. So community and evangelism is what I do there. So I've been an offensive security evangelist for quite a while. I think sometimes we don't take offensive security and pen testing serious enough. A lot of times it's only when it's forced, which we really need to take it serious, because the only way to really be able to test and grade your security posture is through assessments.
And I'm James Carpenter. I've worked in healthcare primarily my entire career. I currently work at Scottish Rite Hospital for Children, right down the road. Our mission is to give children their childhood back. I've worked at big hospitals, little hospitals, places that think they're a hospital, all kinds of places. And fun fact is I like keeping bees. I'm a beekeeper. And I'm a left-handed praise band drummer now. So that's helped a lot with my security, keeping things on track.
Oh. Thank you all. There's a bunch of questions, and I have a lot of questions. I know we only have a limited amount of time, so I'm going to try to direct the questions to be the most pertinent to the issues that cybersecurity professionals, CISOs, and anyone who's associated with cyber are experiencing. So, first question, and I'll throw it out to Ogechi. I'm going to give everybody a chance to answer the same question, and we'll probably mix it up in the order. So the first one is cyber threats continue to evolve at an unprecedented pace. What do you see as the most significant emerging cybersecurity threats over the next 3 to 5 years, and how should organizations proactively prepare for them? And there's also a second part to that. What role do new technologies such as AI and quantum computing play in these future threats?
All right, thank you for the question. I feel like AI-powered or AI-driven threats will continue to evolve. Those have been around for quite some time now. One thing that I know AI is doing is that it is disrupting the cybersecurity balance by doing two things. So it is lowering the bar for attackers, enabling them to stage or coordinate sophisticated cyber attacks. At the same time, it's also helping defenders' capabilities by injecting itself into most or many workflows that we have to proactively protect our infrastructure. So I see AI being leveraged by attackers in launching sophisticated phishing campaigns. I see technologies like the multimodal deepfakes being used, making social engineering and fraud defense challenging. I also see quantum computing threats impacting encryption. And some people may argue that adversaries don't have the capabilities in terms of resources and speed to launch successful quantum computing attacks right now. But I feel like organizations need to be proactive in moving into NIST recommendations in protecting encryption threats, because attackers have this strategy to kind of harvest data now and then decrypt later. So they are engaging in all kinds of tools and methodologies within quantum computing to harvest and store the data to decrypt it, once they have the capabilities to do that.
Excellent, thank you. Can I ask the folks at the bar just to keep noise down? I know it's a great networking opportunity, and we're the last panel of the day, so let's have our experts talk as much as possible. If you can keep the noise at the back down, it would be appreciated.
Joe, just real quick. Hey, everybody here at the bar, just real quick, a heads up at the bar. If we could be respectful of everybody at the panel and their time, it's a little loud back here. If we could just maybe tone it down, really appreciate it. Thank you so much. Sorry, Joe.
Thank you. And Phillip?
Yeah, she had a lot of really great points, and just kind of emphasize on how, on certain points of it, threat actors are able to leverage AI to help them write code. One of the things I'll say too, it's really more or less scaling their capabilities, what they can do in less time. Because one of the things with AI is it can do a lot of things for you, but if you don't understand how to code, it's hard to write good code. So it's basically really what we're looking at is scaling what they're able to do. Just like a developer, you can take someone that knows nothing about development, trying to write code, it's gonna be hard to get good code out. But if you know something about it and you're using AI-enabled editors and stuff, compile editors, then you're able to create more code more quickly and really scale. Same thing on the defensive side, because the organization I work for, we have an automated pen testing product, and in the area of autonomous pen testing, it's allowing you to do more in less time. So threat actors are doing the same thing with the automation, able to do things more quickly and scale. And to the deep fake things, I think that's the topic of deep fakes. I think that's one of the biggest risks we got there, because you heard about last year where the big campaign where they were on a Zoom call and it was like $25 million transferred on a call. It looked like a conference call with their peers. So those type of things are kind of scary, and kind of how they're able to leverage things better. Phishing is with the writing, because one of the best things about AI is writing. It's really good at writing, and a lot of times threat actors are coming from different nation states. English is not their first language, so using proper English and grammar and making the documents look legit. Because if you're looking like a certain bank, some of these graphics programs are able to produce logos and create emails that look more similar. But kind of a funny side note that I've kind of noticed over the years, and some of the reason behind that is you'll still see some of these emails that are phishing campaigns that are really poorly written or look obvious. But there's also a reason for that. They're also looking for the gullible people, the easy targets. They can send this out to thousands of people, and if they get a bite on that phishing attack, then they know that they're going to have a lot better chance of getting what they want out of, aside from spending all this time making a perfectly crafted phishing email. They find the obvious, so that way they can find the easy targets.
And easy targets are abundant, unfortunately. The people in this room, I don't think anybody would be an easy target, but there are certainly people who aren't aware of cyber. You know, they use computers in their daily life, and they are, as you say, easy targets. James?
Well, I won't add too much to it. I'll just say I feel like the biggest threat 3 to 5 years is this ever-expanding attack surface area in combination with the cybersecurity's limited time and capacity to deal with it. In healthcare, I see applications coming in every day, piling in. The threat actors are getting smarter. They're getting more efficient. And there's only so much time to go around in a day. And we have this limited window of time before we enter this post-quantum crypto era, so this limited amount of time we have, we need to shore up our automation, make sure we're addressing things like speeding up your certificate replacement process. I think Google reduced it to 90 days, or is talking about it, and Apple's talking about renewing your certificates every 45 days. At some point, it's going to get to where if you're not automating, you're just in trouble. So I think it's the combination of the attack surface and the time we have. So AI has to step in to help us out.
If I could add just one more thing that I missed that I saw recently, this week or last week, that was an interesting fact. And you look at all the risks with AI, but one of the things we have to look at is the use of AI in environments. One thing is putting private and IP data into these generative AI platforms and possibly leaking that information. But another thing is too, with the way they're able to scale development, people are writing code, so you're able to write insecure code more quickly. So we need to really make a focus on testing this code, making sure it's thoroughly vetted before we put it out into production.
Follow-up, so I'm going to start with James on this one. As attackers continue to innovate, new attack vectors are emerging. Can you highlight some additional and most concerning attack vectors gaining traction today, such as supply chain vulnerabilities, deep fake fraud, API-based, which is some of the things that our speakers earlier today talked about? And what specific strategies and technologies should organizations adopt to mitigate those threats before they become widespread?
Yeah, so some of the old school stuff hasn't gone away. I still see phishing, the phone, texts, and I see phishing. That stuff's coming in all the time. So education and awareness is probably about as good as it can get. We are testing all the time and using those in-the-moment training opportunities. The more advanced ones you see coming along, like API, that's a tough one. You have to get API security products, and a lot of the contracts that we enter into with large cloud providers have some component of API monitoring and security. And one thing I'll add to that is a lot of the large cloud providers, particularly, I won't mention the name, largest medical record provider in the country, they actually turn the tables on us now in a way, and they want us to start proving to them that we have a secure environment to keep using their products. So a lot of that additional security beyond just routine phishing and phishing stuff is getting put into contracts now, and then both parties are looking at the connections from both of their sides.
Thank you. Great. Phillip?
Yeah, one of the things to add to protect in those areas is one of the things we have to add, because you mentioned the deep fakes and then we mentioned phishing and social engineering, is one of the things we got to do, even if you're on some Zoom call and you think it's people, we need to make sure that this is not really technical, this is just have a process in place. Make sure you're following that process. If someone is requesting money or a wire transfer, that you're able to call them or validate in a secondary method. And one of the things that you see a lot of cases that's easy to discover is a lot of times you see these phishing emails and smishing attacks. There's a lot of times you see the email coming from them. It's actually like a Gmail account or some generic email account. They're not even really going to the efforts of setting up a legitimate looking email, or either they're trying to hide it. So make sure you're doing your due diligence, checking to see where it's coming from. And one of the things you see a lot, especially in some of the smaller businesses and startups, a lot of the smishing attacks. I remember several startups I've been at that was a text message from the CEO said, hey, could you give me some gift cards? I'd like to kind of mess with the attacker sometime and kind of respond back, say, why are you asking for this? You're sitting right next to me.
Ogechi.
Yes, to add to that, CEO fraud has been a known cybersecurity risk for, decades now, but deep fake videos and audios are elevating these attackers' capabilities in launching very sophisticated and successful social engineering attacks that even the best users are falling for it. With the deepfake videos and audios, it is increasingly difficult to kind of look at them and try to determine whether they are real or fake. So security awareness training, leveraging AI-powered tools that can create successful defense against what the attackers are using is key. Educating high-risk employees, particularly those in finance, on using additional layers of verification, like somebody posing as your CEO, calling you, putting a phone call out to your actual CEO, because attackers can use spoofing technology to mimic exact phone calls, deepfakes for audios. So that extra layer of verification is important. Organizations have to invest in multi-layer authentication as well. And another thing I would like to add is in the healthcare sector, medical IoT devices are really increasing the attack surface for the threat surface. Attack vectors.
Can y'all keep your voices down in the back, please?
It is increasingly challenging because these medical devices can connect to the network, and I feel like cybersecurity organizations need to implement strict endpoint protection and also invest in robust incident response plans, and also look at network segmentation on those IoT devices that are connecting to the network, and maybe implement good vulnerability management system controls to make sure that patches are being applied on time, and updates to those IoT devices are timely, and increase your security controls around endpoint protection.
And obviously it's not practical to air gap all the IoT devices, which would be the ultimate solution if we could do that. In cybersecurity, we know that disruptions are inevitable, whether it's a ransomware attack, a DDoS attack, some malware that gets into the environment, or insider threat from a human interaction. So the next area we're going to look at is incident response, how we deal with those inevitabilities in the environment. So a well-structured incident response plan is critical in minimizing the damage of a cyber attack. In your experience, what are the essential components of an effective incident response plan, and how can organizations ensure that their response teams are prepared to act swiftly and in a coordinated manner when the attack occurs? So we'll start at this end.
I mean, we're all practicing CISO, so we know all the steps required for a successful incident response strategy. But I want to zoom in on two of them. One is with data incident classification or categorization to make sure that we have, documented plan in the incident response plan. We've documented and categorized incidents based on their impact and based on impact to the business. That way we can allocate resources, appropriately. Another area of focus is the lessons learned after the incident has been contained and everything else, is kind of look at what we did well and what we didn't do well to be able to close any gaps in security. I believe that those are the two that stand out to me, but having a clear communication plan, defining your roles, making sure people know what they need to do, and escalation processes, who to contact in case of an incident, and also having testing, tabletop testing, regular testing. You can never emphasize that enough.
Excellent. And Phillip?
Yes, really great points there, but one of the things kind of add to that is for like your incident response plans, make sure that you're, with your security awareness, that you're communicating that. Make sure that everyone knows the email address, proper email address for incident response, and any kind of phone numbers associated with that. But as far as testing that, as she kind of mentioned, one of the ways this can be tested is during red team exercises. You're able to see if things are being detected and seeing if your incident response plan is being followed properly. One of the best outcomes I've heard of a red team exercise was this company had an IR firm on retainer. This red team operation was going on, and for those who are not really familiar with red teaming, it's really different. It's more adversary emulation, not just your traditional pen test. You're testing to see if you're detected, and you have a control group. Usually this is the CISO, maybe some other management. Usually the blue team's not part of this because you don't want them to tip their teams off. But this company was having this red team operation performed. They saw some malicious activity, so they called the incident response company. They were inside trying to detect and remove the threat. And they called the CISO and said, I think we have an active incident going on. And so the CISO said, this was a planned attack. So this is a good way. They were following the incident response plan, and they called the CISO, let them know that we already have someone working on it. They're trying to isolate and remove the threat.
Thank you. That was a great example. That was going to be a next question, so I may come back to that, but I'm going to let James answer this part of it.
Oh, yeah, I'll just really quickly say that communications is really big on your incident plan. And it's not just we have a communication plan. It's my preferred communication methods in my organization are Teams and the phone system. If those are down, what's the next communication plan? And having a protocol for switching to that plan. We're in a virtual world too, so part of the plan needs to be, are we standing up an on-site command center or are we not? So there's a way of communicating that, and the decision-making process is there as well. And then the last thing I might say is segregation of the technical teams and the leadership teams. The technical teams want to isolate, get the job done, and you can't have VPs standing over them, bugging them about how's progress going. You want to get it contained. And then the CISO's role is kind of to liaison between those two parties.
Great. Well, the part that sort of Phillip stole the thunder sort of from was basically if you're willing to share a case study of a successful or unsuccessful incident response activity. You don't have to give organization specifics. Obviously, we'll follow Chatham House rules, so anything you say here, hopefully will stay here, except for the virtual audience out watching this. But if either, or Phillip has another one, but if anyone wants to share a case study, either good or bad.
I can jump in with one. I'll just share an unsuccessful case study. Lesson learned for me, my first incident, big place I was working. This thing was spreading all the way across the hospital. The bad decision was to let the technical teams try to solve it versus step in as the CISO, as a leader, and declare the event and take command and have the technical teams report to me. So 2 days into it, I got around to that. Never going to let that happen again, but that problem was remediated within 24 hours after that. But we had highly technical people that think they know how to do everything, but they're operating in pockets, they're operating in silos. Some are solving it, some are not, and then machines are getting reinfected. Those people have to report to a command structure, and you have to declare it and own it.
Great, thank you. Ogechi, do you want to have no case study for you? That's fine. You don't have to. We're going to move on to another area that I know a lot of people are involved in and interested in, cloud security. As businesses increasingly migrate their operations to the cloud, security remains a major concern. What are the biggest challenges organizations are facing in securing cloud environments, and what best practices should they adopt to maintain a strong security posture while leveraging the benefit of cloud services? And I'll throw it back to James. Start that side.
Yeah, I can quickly start off. I'll just say this. When it comes to cloud security, I think one major problem is technical teams say, oh, it's the cloud provider. They've got the security, so we don't have to really do anything. And they just trust that, and we're talking about big applications out there, Workday, Epic, whatever. So to me, that's a fallacy. And the best way to prepare for it is to get the teams. I like to train them on small things and then grow from there. But just the basics. How do you connect your Amazon instances back to your central logging system and set up custom alerts, integrate those with your SOC? If you do those small things iteratively, that's one way to help. The other way to help, I think, is through IT governance with all these cloud apps. A lot of cloud apps come your way because people are just wanting these things, and there's no IT governance rationalizing the quantity of new things coming into your hospital. If you can have good IT governance, you can go to a philosophy of use what you have, rule out what you have before you use anything else, and that really helps focus those security efforts.
And if I could ask the folks at the bar, there's some people who can't hear. If you can please lower your volume at the bar. I know it's networking time, but we have our panel here and people can't hear them. So appreciate your indulgence. And Phillip, you want to take that question?
Sure. I think one of the big things is education, because you take a lot of people that came from the on-prem environments of security, make sure that they're getting trained on the technology and how to use it. There's a lot of cases people are in situations where all of a sudden now they're responsible for cloud, but they didn't get trained on it. Make sure they're getting adequately trained on the technology itself, plus security. And then also keep in mind when you have hybrid environments where you're on-prem and in the cloud, make sure you're not neglecting the connections from your on-prem to the cloud. And then also too, make sure you're assessing the security. A lot of people at one time thought we're moving to cloud, it's more secure, someone else is managing it. Make sure you're assessing and performing pen tests against both of those environments to make sure they're secure, because a lot of the type of leakages you hear out there is open S3 buckets or different storage is open. Make sure those are secure. Continuous testing, and some of the attack surface management products are constantly monitoring your environments to look for any kind of vulnerabilities like that.
We will have a question from the virtual, so I'm going to let this answer first.
All right, so cloud security uses a shared responsibility model. In other words, sometimes you have the cloud provider, responsible for securing the infrastructure, and the client is responsible for application security and all of that. I would say one of the challenges is making sure that everybody knows what their roles are and have that articulated properly and defined. Also, like he mentioned, constant audit for, vendors or third-party. Okay, no, I'm moving into third-party risk.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, but making sure that you're on top of, security assessments and audits to make sure that the providers maintain a healthy security posture on their end.
And we're going to talk more about that in a second. Go ahead with that online.
Hey, Joe, real quick, I do have an online question. Before I get to the online question, again, if I could ask people at the bar who are having some of the louder discussions, if we can maybe move those discussions outside or maybe lowers those down in terms of volume of the conversations that we're having over here. Maybe if we can tone those down a little bit, really appreciate it. A lot of people can't hear. To the online question, John Hollister asks, how does the fast-paced growth of future threats, AI, quantum computing, increases in as a service, etc., change an organization's cyber landscape and the threats realized by business decision makers?
Great question.
I can start with that. That's the limited runway of exactly what I was talking about. Automation, if you're not automating, if your processes are manual, you need to find ways to make those automated. If you can layer AI on top of that, that's even better. Network segmentation, I'll use as a quick example. It's great to divide your network into little submarine compartments so your ship doesn't sink, but usually you get attacked at 2 o'clock in the morning and nobody's going to crawl out of bed and start shutting those doors. You need something laid atop your network to start closing those doors for you, and you need to practice that. You need to iterate that.
Great, thank you. Phillip or Ogechi, do you want to take those?
Sure, yeah. Like he said, the automation, because one of the things even with that people aren't as familiar with, they're actually pen testing's automated now. So automated pen testing or autonomous pen testing that can continually be testing. If you're going to, from using AI internally, train your people on how to use AI securely. I think that's a big one there, because in a lot of cases, as mentioned earlier, people are putting private data or intellectual property into Chat GPT or different generative AI platforms. And I think making sure also training is one thing that gets overlooked sometimes. Make sure you get the budget for people to get trained and stay ahead of these emerging technologies, because one of the things that happens is you take someone that's been in security for 10 years and you're not getting them trained, and they're not doing something on their own to learn. They're getting behind the curve, and they're not going to be able to keep up with and properly protect your environment, because we've seen a lot of that back with cloud. When cloud started getting widely adopted, a lot of people that were traditional IT on-prem didn't evolve with that and got left behind. So we really need to make sure we're keeping up to date with all these emerging technologies, at least learn something about it. Not everything's going to be specific to that company, like some of the Web3 technologies not everyone's using, but make sure that you have a good idea of it, and keep that in mind with your architecture as you're building things out, adding on to your environments to make sure you keep in mind these emerging technologies and that they're deployed securely.
Hey, you want to take that one?
Yes, so I agree with what he said. AI-driven defense products are not infallible. Regardless of its name, AI is not intelligent. The only intelligent entity or organ is the human brain. It takes a human brain to really define intelligence. AI helps us in decision making, right? it cannot make the decision for us. So we still need to apply controls around. I don't know if I understood the question correctly, but we still need to apply controls around the use of AI within our organizations, and also make sure that we're training AI with good data, because AI systems consume lots of data. They thrive on huge data sets. So the quality of data determines how the output that we get. And with data poisoning, things like threat hunting AI applications could learn to bypass. You could introduce biases into those threat hunting platforms, and they could introduce holes or gaps within, detecting actual threats.
Good answers, all three. This was touched on briefly, and I want to see if you guys will elaborate. Many companies see compliance as a check-the-box exercise rather than an opportunity to enhance their security posture. How can organizations leverage regulatory compliance as a driver for better security, and what are some examples of businesses that have successfully used compliance to improve their cybersecurity strategies? I know healthcare certainly deals a lot with compliance issues, and anyone in the financial services industry. Even if you're dealing with internal audits, that's a level of compliance. It may not be regulatory, but any publicly traded company with SOX reporting, you have your internal and external audits, so that's a form. I would also include that and would not exclude that, specific like HIPAA or FINRA type.
Yes.
So, James,
Yeah, I
go
can
ahead.
elaborate just a little bit on that. In fact, HIPAA has recently come out with some updated guidance. They're in the request for comments period, so probably later here in 2025, we'll see some updated HIPAA rules. And they're pretty strict. I think the main benefit of compliance, how it helps security programs, is it helps you design your security controls. If you don't have any idea of what you should be doing, you can at least start with that. They're all basically the same controls: password, unique user ID, etc. And the regulations, and they're advancing, helps you always measure your controls against something so you know where you stand. And they're very helpful with shaping the organization's culture towards a security-minded culture. Because there are those folks in every organization that are privileged, if you will, that maybe the rules aren't for me, but the compliance and the regulations, the laws, they kind of help you get over that hump when you partner with your audit teams, your legal teams, your compliance team, and the IT leadership.
Great answer. Thank you, Phillip.
One of the things I'd like to add is the way to get a lot of value out of your compliance. And kind of before I start that, PCI, it's interesting, it really helped create, really, in my opinion, the need for pen testing. It helped build the pen testing industry. Before that, not very many people were getting pen tests done. A lot of companies didn't. They just did it because compliance. But part of the side effect, too, was people were just trying to check the box and not do it correctly, so it kind of missed out on some opportunity. Although it seems like people are getting better about it. But one of the things I'd advise, too, is you need to check the controls. As you mentioned, we have these controls, but we want to audit that, and that could be typical audit methods or pen test. I recommend doing some pen testing along with that to audit certain controls, but also really want to encourage teamwork and collaboration between audit and like the pen test teams or the people that are validating these controls to work closely. I had a really good experience at one company I worked for while doing an Active Directory pen test. Audit was also doing a Microsoft Windows audit. And so one of the things too is the people that work in audit don't always understand the technology, but when you put them together, it's a strong collaboration. They know what the controls are. Your practitioner can tell you this needs to be set to that and kind of translate. So it's a really good thing, collaboration. I'd really recommend getting your audit team as well as the practitioners, the technical folks, to collaborate on it to make sure you got a good outcome. Because if you're really not understanding the control and you check it off because you don't understand the technology, you're kind of missing out and kind of leaving this risk open that you thought you were immune to. So make sure that you've got good collaboration going on there. And that's one of the things I like also is like purple teaming that came about brought that collaboration. So we really need that throughout security, IT, together in audit and GRC to work together to make sure you're getting the most of it, that everyone knows they're on the same team. It's not us against them, and we're able to use their strengths to help the other team to better understand it. Because one of the things that was a good outcome is a lot of people on the audit team got to understand the technical side better, and I got to understand the audit piece a lot better and understand the controls. Becoming from a pen testing background, you're more concerned with vulnerabilities and exploitable vulnerabilities, but being able to understand how controls work was a great learning experience for me.
And
Yes, compliance actually helps kind of inform an organization's culture, like he said. So being able to select those minimum security controls for organizations that are very low in the security maturity scale, and also increasing collaborations within departments like the legal department with security teams helps position an organization with kind of compliance and kind of integrating that culture within the organization. People pay attention when they know that there are fines if there are gaps in security, or if there's a breach or whatever. They respond better to that than just coming down to tell them you have to do this, because when you do it you secure the data and all that. When they start talking about numbers and then complying to a particular regulation, people pay attention to that.
great. We're getting near the end of our time. I've got one question, and then we'll see if we have some time to take some questions from the audience. But I'd like each of the panelists to basically, looking ahead, what do you believe will be the most significant cybersecurity challenges that organizations will face in the next decade? And how should business and security leaders prepare to stay ahead of those threats? So whoever wants to start.
Well, it's a rough start if you're starting with me, but I'll do it. First of all, I can barely keep up with what's happening next year, but quantum is certainly a problem. I've heard what problems quantum can cause. I'll kind of believe it when I see it, because both sides are going to take advantage of quantum. But speed is going to be the issue, I think. The time to adjust things, fix things, keep up with things, that's going to be a problem. If you're lagging behind and doing things manually, I think that's just going to get worse over the years. The other thing, I think, is this rapid development of new software. You can spin up software on a dime. Anybody can write software today. You don't even have to have a background necessarily, just general concepts, and you can go have software, write software for you. So the bad guy getting better and more targeted is going to be a challenge, because it's going to be a mixture of social engineering, smart bad guys, and speed, and you've got to keep up with that.
Thank you. And we'll change up the order. Ogechi, you want to take the next one?
Yeah, I think we've already touched on some of those on the first question about, threat vectors and things. But I feel like also information overload is going to be a risk. When you have organizations, subscribing to threat intelligence platforms, that could be advantageous, but at the same time, we may see a lot of information overload fatigue because of all of this. And we have to have threat hunting capabilities that are able to kind of zoom in on trying to get, information, right information out of all the, malware repositories, threat intelligence feeds, and all these other sources of data. It could be chaotic, right? and then investing in AI-driven protection or defense, at the same time applying controls to safeguard and secure that, because you're going to have to look at like the LLM pipeline, data storage for those AI models. So it becomes challenging because it's helping you to kind of create a proactive rather than a reactive defense. But at the same token, it opens you up to other security risks like data leaks and things. So trying to safeguard those AI applications and apply controls to safeguard them will be a challenge.
Great, thank you. And Phillip, you get the last answer.
Sure. One of the things I say that doesn't change and will be the same going forward is just good security hygiene and practices. Make sure that you're doing those properly. Also, make sure you're continually assessing your security posture. And then on top of that, not to waste that effort, make sure you're remediating on a timely manner. Because these vulnerabilities stay open too long, it's an opportunity. And another reason for continuous testing. Back one of my consulting jobs, we were doing a pen test. We had a 90-day retest, which was good that they did a 90-day retest. But during that pen test, I found critical highs and mediums and lows. So when I came back to do the retest, I was doing my initial vulnerability scans. They did great. They got rid of all the criticals that were there before, mediums and highs, and most of the lows. But during that time, someone figured out how to exploit one of those vulnerabilities. Now it was critical. If they hadn't had me do a retest, then that vulnerability would have laid open for over a year before it was tested again. So this was plenty of opportunity for threat actors. Threat actors are looking for these weak links to be able to gain access to these environments. So make sure you're continually testing, and where before, twice a year might have been good, you really need to be testing more frequently than that. And a lot of these vulnerabilities that are being exploited are small or less critical vulnerabilities that are chained together, because CISA has their known exploited vulnerability list. And one of the stats on their site is they talk about how a lot of these vulnerabilities are not even highs or mediums. It's like several different lower level vulnerabilities chained together for people to exploit. And then also education, make sure you're continually educating your employees. Give your security staff and even IT staff a percentage of their time to do security research and learning, so that way they're constantly learning, so you can stay up to date and ahead of the curve on these different technologies. And I think that's going to help go a long way, even if you could even have like a research dedicated role or dedicated researchers within organizations. Some people think that's mainly just product companies or vendors, but it's not a bad idea to have internally, because some of these people I know that are security researchers, they're keeping up with AI. I know a good friend of mine is a security researcher for MSP, and he's constantly keeping up to date on AI, and he's finding a lot of good information that's helping protect their customers. So why not go a step further and have a dedicated role or department within your organization that's keeping up to date with all these different emerging technologies?
Great, thank you. Do we have time for a couple of questions? Do we have any questions to any of our panelists? I see one right down here.
Hi everyone, I'm Sandra from Citi. So given that we don't have any international standards for governing the use or just functionality of AI as of now, a lot of companies, especially big organizations that are not tech focused, are excited to try AI and adopt them in their day-to-day. What's the advice on how they should go about ensuring that they're testing these AI models in a secure way? And do you think that companies should be more proactive in building security policies around adoption and use of AI, as opposed to waiting for these international bodies like NIST and all the like to come up with those standards for them?
Good question.
One of the things from a testing perspective is OWASP has some information out there. And OWASP, for those not familiar, they're not only web app security, they're also cover LLMs, IoT, and they're kind of emerging the things they cover. So checking out resources like OWASP to learn how to securely secure your environment. There are companies out there that have AI bug bounties. One of the companies is called Protect AI. I would kind of look into them. Also, follow any bug bounty hunters that do AI pen testing, because that's becoming more common. And you're going to see a lot of people focusing on that because it's going to be a lot of easy bugs. And a lot of the bugs, from what I understand from people that do AI bug bounties, there's a lot of those vulnerabilities that are web application related. A lot of those are vulnerabilities that exist within AI. So leveraging OWASP, I think one of the big things is getting plugged into the community. And one of the things advice I want to give someone that goes across anything is diversify the community that you're involved in. Because one of the things I notice, like here locally, you'll see people that just go to Dallas Hackers, OWASP, and DC 214, the DEF CON groups, but they're not going to ISSA. Or you see people going to North Texas ISSA or ISC, they're staying away from the organizations like the Dallas Hackers. So be involved in go to different types of conferences. Maybe, these conferences you like, ISC2's Congress, that's a good conference to go to, but find some things that are a little more practitioner and hands-on, like Wild West Hacking Fest, GERCON, some of these more hacker-oriented conferences, DEF CON, to get out there and learn to get exposed to it. You go to DEF CON, I guarantee you go this year, you'll find out a bunch of information. They have like a AI village. You could probably go learn more in 3 days there than you probably could taking some kind of AI security class.
Excellent. Thanks, Phillip. Any other questions? I see one right there.
Yes, thank you so much for all the information. So my name is Busola from Comerica Bank. So you mentioned, you talked about, addressing critical vulnerabilities that come up within your environment. A situation that I was faced with, and I just wanted to ask, how do you address situations whereby you have critical vulnerabilities being identified within the environment, and the time to remediate these vulnerabilities, like to come up with the patches to fix these vulnerabilities, like it's not readily available from the service provider? What do you advise? Like, what's the next step situation? What do you do?
Well, I might start with that one. I think we all experience that problem. That's where you look for your choke points, I think. The context, the keynote speaker, I think, talked a little bit about the context. There was an IPv6 vulnerability that came out one time. Every computer in the hospital is running IPv6. You need to patch it right away. We just disabled IPv6 routing at the edge, so you couldn't get in through IPv6, and that bought you a little time. So you're looking for choke points where you can cut off the access to the vulnerability, solving the context problem. Buy yourself a little time until something else comes along. And the things that you can do, I would say don't let perfection be the enemy of progress. Make progress where you can make progress. That's always a good thing.
Yeah, and I'll add to that, and that's exactly what he said, is the next plan of action is what are your compensating controls, to put those in place for, to remediate those vulnerabilities until the patching is available.
And that wraps the panel. Thank you, Phillip, James, and Ogechi. Great answers. And next, I'm going to turn over to the FutureCon people for the raffles.
I just want to thank you guys one more time, because let's face it, these guys could literally be anywhere other than here, and they have a million things to do, and we want to thank you so much for your time. It was well worth it. Thank you. And for the vendors that are still left in this room, we also want to thank them, because without them, we all wouldn't be here. So